A motorboat? I blurted at the sight of my father-in-law's gear. My wife and I cut groceries, skipped doctors to send him money for supposed debt. I stood there, stunned. We'd scraped by for months, and now he was off on a retirement tour? I took a breath and asked one question. I wasn't planning to stop by. I just finished a grocery run and figured I'd swing past Frank's place to drop off the coffee he likes. Nothing fancy, just the store-brand medium roast he always insists is better than those overpriced beans. I pulled into his driveway in Staten, still half distracted by the mental math I'd been doing all week. Bills, Liana's student loan payment, the third month in a row we'd skipped our date night. I hadn't bought my allergy meds yet. Again, I knocked once and pushed the door open. Frank. It's me. He was in the living room, wearing cargo shorts and a faded Red Sox tee, surrounded by fishing magazines and Amazon boxes. Hey, you're just in time, he said, grinning like he'd won the lottery. For what? He held up a glossy brochure and pointed to a picture of a red motorboat. For this bad boy. Just put the down payment on it this morning. I blinked. You bought a boat? He chuckled, misreading my expression. Finally treating myself. I've been dreaming about this since the 80s. Retirement adventure. Here I come. He kept talking, describing the engine specs and plans to cruise up the Hudson, but I couldn't process any of it. My ears started ringing. Wait, I said, cutting him off. You bought a boat? He looked puzzled. Yeah, like I said, it's time. I'm not getting any younger. But I thought, we've been sending money every month. For the medical bills. And the mortgage. Liana said you were barely staying afloat. Frank stopped flipping the brochure. What? The support. The money we've been sending. He raised an eyebrow. You've been sending me money? I stared at him. Liana said after the funeral, after your wife passed, that you were drowning in debt. We've been cutting back on everything so we could help. Frank leaned forward, confusion etched across his face. Son, I haven't received a single dollar from you. I never asked for help. I didn't need it. Insurance covered most of the medical bills, and the house was paid off years ago. My mouth went dry. You never got the transfers? He shook his head slowly. No. Liana said she was going to help me with a Costco membership, maybe come by to organize the garage. That's it. I stood there like an idiot, grocery bag still hanging from my hand. My brain raced, trying to put pieces together that suddenly didn't fit. Every skipped dinner, every time we cut back on groceries, every, I'll make it work from Liana when I asked if we could postpone the car maintenance. All of it, supposedly for Frank. And here he was, talking about retirement adventures and polishing brochures while I was skipping prescriptions. A cold wave of unease rolled over me. Something was wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. I forced a smile, excused myself, and backed out of the house. In the car, I didn't start the engine. I just sat there, trying to remember the first time Liana said we needed to help her dad. My fingers trembled as I gripped the steering wheel. I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that everything I'd sacrificed these past few months had been for a lie. Back then, life felt like it had finally started to stabilize. It was maybe 2 months after the funeral. The worst of the grieving had passed, at least on the surface. Liana cried less. The photos on the fridge stopped falling off from being touched too often. I'd even stopped flinching every time her phone rang, expecting more bad news. We were trying to get back to normal, whatever that meant. One night, we were sitting at the kitchen table eating baked chicken and boxed mac and cheese. Nothing fancy, just simple comfort food. I remember thinking how nice it was to have her sitting across from me again, not curled up on the couch with tissues in her lap and her back to me. She took a sip of water, then set the glass down and said, I think we should help my dad. I looked up from my plate. Help him how? Financially. Just a little bit, month to month. Not forever, just until he gets back on his feet. I frowned. I thought the house was paid off. It is, she said quickly. But the medical bills were a mess. Mom didn't have enough coverage. And the funeral, that nearly broke him. That didn't sit right. I remembered her saying the insurance handled most of it, but I didn't push. Not then. She reached across the table and took my hand. He's not the kind of man who asks for help, but I know he's struggling. I can see it in his face. I don't know, Lee, I said carefully. We've already had to dip into savings for a few things. We're not exactly rolling in it. I know. Her voice dropped. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. I'm worried about him. I nodded slowly, chewing the inside of my cheek. Okay, how much are you thinking? Just a few $100 a month. Enough to help with bills. He won't even know it's from us. I'll transfer it straight to his account through Zelle. That gave me pause. You don't want to tell him? She hesitated. It's complicated. My sister's still living with him. If she finds out we're sending money, it'll create drama. She thinks she's the only one pulling her weight right now, and she's got this whole complex. It's better if she doesn't know. I glanced at her. She looked tired. Not manipulative, just tired. And when she said, please, I caved. Okay, I said. We'll make it work. She squeezed my hand and smiled, but there was something off about it. Too quick. Too relieved. That night, I set up a monthly transfer to her account, $500 every first of the month. We didn't talk about it again, not for a while. But the next week, she came home with groceries and told me we had to start budgeting better. We'd have to cut back on eating out, maybe cancel some subscriptions. I didn't complain. I figured that's what you do for family. What I didn't know was that my family wasn't the one we were helping. At first, the changes were manageable. We cut back on takeout, switched to generic brands, canceled the gym membership we never really used. It was just temporary. That's what Liana kept saying. Just until things leveled out for her dad. But by month 3, it stopped feeling like a choice. I remember standing at the pharmacy with my albuterol inhaler in one hand and my debit card in the other, staring at the total on the screen. $43. I didn't have it. Not without skipping gas or groceries. I put it back. We still have one from last month, Liana said when I got home. Just stretch it. You haven't needed it much lately. That was true. Mostly. Except for the occasional wheeze I pretended not to notice. We had started splitting shampoo bottles. She was diluting the dish soap with water to make it last longer. She made a spreadsheet of every expense, rent, electricity, groceries, and left a note next to each line. Do we really need this? The streaming services were the first to go, then the bi-weekly coffee runs, then meat. We switched to beans and rice, then to whatever was cheapest per pound at the grocery outlet. I stopped buying snacks for work, stopped buying lunch, started skipping breakfast some days. I picked up extra shifts at the auto shop, staying late on Saturdays, sometimes even Sunday mornings. The extra hours helped, but they wore me down fast. I'd come home reeking of motor oil, feet aching, and Liana would be gone. Support group, she'd say when I texted. Just getting out of the house. Don't wait up. She was always gone these days. Out with friends from her grief circle, or running errands that seemed to last 4 hours, and in with a bag from some boutique shop she swore she didn't buy anything from, just looked around. She stopped touching me, stopped laughing at my jokes, stopped being around, really. When I asked how her dad was doing, she'd say, same, still struggling. And I believed her. One night, maybe 2 months after I'd skipped that inhaler refill, I had an asthma attack. Not a bad one, but bad enough to make me sit on the floor and lean forward like I used to do as a kid. My lungs felt like they were wrapped in wire. Liana walked in while I was wheezing into a paper bag. Her face didn't change. No panic, no rush. Just annoyance. You're scaring me, she said. But not in the way someone who's scared says it. More like someone being inconvenienced. I need to go to urgent care, I managed to say. She folded her arms. We can't afford emergencies right now. I just stared at her. She turned and walked into the kitchen like we'd been talking about the weather. I sat there, trying to catch my breath, wondering if I was losing my mind. We had cut everything. My body was giving up. And still, $500 left our account every month, like clockwork. Not a single late transfer. That night, I sat on the couch alone, scrolling through my banking app. The numbers didn't lie. Rent was late. The credit card was creeping up. My inhaler was still out of reach. But that $500? Right on time. Always right on time. It was Liana's idea to visit her dad. That's what made it so strange. We should surprise him, she said one Sunday morning, pouring cereal like she wasn't holding a live grenade. He sounded down last time I called. Maybe it'll cheer him up. I blinked at her. You said he didn't want visitors. She shrugged. Maybe I was wrong. That was the first red flag. The second came when we pulled into his driveway in Rockport and saw a shiny black SUV parked in the street with a roof rack full of camping gear. The third was the laughter spilling out of the garage. 2 voices, upbeat and unbothered. Liana's sister, Tessa, was crouched next to Frank, packing a cooler full of snacks. Next to them, a pair of high-end hiking boots and a luxury portable espresso maker sat among several suitcases. Everything was clean, new, and not exactly what you'd expect from a man supposedly drowning in debt. Liana stiffened beside me. What the hell? Frank turned and lit up. Hey, look who's here. He wiped his hands on a towel and walked over, arms out like we were dropping by for Sunday dinner. Tessa waved. You're just in time to see the setup. Setup for what? I asked, forcing a smile. Frank clapped his hands. The big trip. We're heading out tomorrow. Cross-country RV tour. Me and Tessa, just us two. Europe's next summer, but we're starting small. You gotta ease into the retirement life, you know? Liana didn't speak. She just stared at them like they were performing a scene from someone else's life. Tessa bounced over. It's a total dream. First stop is a spa in Vermont. Then we're swinging down through Tennessee, New Mexico, everywhere. We got massages booked, thermal pools, glamping spots. You two should come for the New Orleans leg. Frank laughed. Don't offer that unless you mean it. You know these two might actually show up. I smiled weakly. We can't really travel right now. Frank tilted his head. Why not? I looked at Liana. She looked away. I cleared my throat. We've been budgeting. Pretty heavily. Helping you out, remember? Tessa froze. Helping him. Frank blinked. You've been sending money? I looked between them. You really didn't know? Frank scratched the back of his head. No, not a dime. What are you talking about? Liana told me, after the funeral, that you were struggling, that you couldn't cover the medical bills or the mortgage. We've been sending money every month. Frank looked at Liana. Sweetheart, I never said that. Tessa narrowed her eyes. Wait, how much money? I turned to Liana. Tell them. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. 500 a month, I said. Since January. Tessa's face turned. You said I was being selfish for not pitching in. Liana swallowed. I didn't. I was just trying to help. Frank's voice dropped. By lying to your husband? By making him think I was broke? Silence. Then Tessa laughed, cold and mean. That's why you didn't want me touching his accounts. Said it was too complicated. You've been pocketing it this whole time. Liana finally snapped. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I asked. My voice was low, tight. She looked at me, then at her dad and sister, then back at the ground. It was just easier this way. The air left the room, or the driveway, whatever we were standing in. Everything felt suspended in that awful second. Frank backed away, shaking his head. Jesus, Liana. Tessa's voice was sharper. You let them skip food and bills so you could go to goddamn Pilates? Liana didn't answer. She couldn't. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel crazy. I felt furious. Betrayed. But mostly, I felt done. We didn't speak the entire drive home. Liana stared out the passenger window like she was watching someone else's life roll by. I kept both hands on the wheel, knuckles white, my jaw clenched so tight I thought I'd crack a molar. When we pulled into the driveway, she reached for the door handle before I even turned off the engine. Don't, I said. We're talking about this. Inside. She dropped her purse on the couch and immediately went for the kitchen like she needed something to do, something to touch. I stood in the living room, waiting. You lied to me, I finally said. She didn't turn around. It wasn't a lie. It got out of hand. Out of hand. My voice rose. You let me think your dad was about to lose his house. That we were bailing him out. You let me skip medicine, my asthma meds, because you told me we were barely staying afloat. She turned then, arms crossed. It wasn't about the money. It was about what I needed. What I didn't have. What does that even mean? I needed something for myself, okay? After Mom died, I felt like I was fading. Everything became about grief, about being sad, about being quiet. But when I went to those classes, those dinners, those spa days, I felt real again. So you took from me, I said, stunned. From us. Her voice sharpened. You wouldn't understand. You get to go to work every day. You have coworkers. Purpose. I was just here, shrinking. All I asked for was a little space to feel normal again. No, you didn't ask. You lied. You took. She went quiet. Then we heard tires on the gravel outside. Tessa. She let herself in. No knocking. Dad's still at home, trying to process this crap. He's heartbroken. But I can't sit still. I need answers. Liana looked like a cornered animal. You don't need to be here. Yeah, Tessa said, voice cold. I do. Because for months, you made me feel guilty for not helping Dad. You told me I was selfish. You made me second-guess myself while you were out getting facials. I didn't mean. You manipulated your own husband, Tessa snapped. And for what? Bar classes and juice cleanses. Liana stepped forward. I was falling apart. So were we. Tessa shouted. We just didn't steal from the people who loved us. Liana looked at me, finally desperate. Please. I didn't think it would go this far. I needed control. I needed something. You had me, I said. And you broke that. Tessa shook her head in disbelief. You're unbelievable. Liana tried to say anything, but Tessa cut her off with an open-handed slap that echoed across the room. Silence. Then Tessa turned and walked out the door. Liana stood there, stunned, one hand on her cheek, blinking fast. I didn't move. I didn't comfort her. Because all I could think about was the night I sat on the floor, lungs barely working, while she told me we couldn't afford an emergency. While she was out spending our emergency fund on hot stone massages and yoga mats. Her voice cracked. You hate me now. I don't know what I feel, I said. But I know what I don't. What's that? Trust. She started to cry. Big, shaking sobs that sounded more like panic than grief. But I didn't move. I just watched her crumble in the kitchen, wondering how much of my life I'd given away without realizing it. Wondering if this, us, had ever been real to begin with. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun in slow, lazy circles, trying to wrap my head around what the hell had just happened. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her standing in the kitchen, mascara running, muttering apologies that felt weightless. like dust. Around 3 a.m., I got up and sat at the kitchen table with my bank statement spread in front of me. I went month by month, line by line. Transfers to Liana. Grocery purchases that never made it home. Spot charges tucked inside her Apple Wallet like secrets. One afternoon in February, I remembered scrounging for coins under the couch cushions to buy my inhaler, while she was dropping $200 at a salt therapy lounge. It wasn't just the money. It was the betrayal. And worse, the fact that I'd let it happen. When the sun rose, I showered and packed a duffel bag. Not dramatically. Just enough for a few nights. Socks. T-shirts. My work boots. Liana came out of the bedroom in a robe, bleary-eyed, clutching a mug of coffee. You're leaving. Her voice cracked on the second word. I zipped the bag slowly. Yeah. She crossed her arms. Where are you going? I don't know. Somewhere quiet. She stepped forward. Can we talk? Please. I stood up. We already did. You lied. Repeatedly. You made me think we were helping your father, and you watched me bleed for it. You let me go without medicine. She looked away, her eyes wet. I was overwhelmed, she whispered. You don't understand what it's like to be under so much pressure, to feel like nothing you do is enough. You're right, I said. I don't understand what that's like. I only understand what it's like to support someone, completely, and still get left in the dark. She walked toward me. Please don't do this. Please don't throw it all away. I stepped back. You already did. She broke then, really broke, fell to the floor in a heap, sobbing, reaching for the strap of my bag like holding it could stop me from walking out. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there, letting it all settle. I'm going to talk to a lawyer, I said quietly. Her head snapped up. What? I want a divorce, Liana. She shook her head furiously. No, this isn't real. We can fix it. I can fix it. I picked up my bag. You had every chance to fix it, I said, stepping toward the door. And you chose yourself. Every time. She cried harder, but I didn't turn back. I walked out into the morning air, duffel over my shoulder, knowing one thing with absolute clarity. The version of us I'd been fighting for was already gone. I found a lawyer the following Monday. Her name was Camille Bauer, calm voice, sharp eyes. She sat across from me in her downtown office, flipping through the binder of bank statements I'd printed out, her red pen gliding over the pages like a scalpel. You've got a strong case, she said, not looking up. Fraud. Misappropriation of marital funds. Maybe even emotional distress, if you're up for pushing it. I'm not looking to punish her, I said. I just want it over. She glanced at me then, one brow raised. You say that now. Let's see how you feel when she starts sending paragraphs at midnight. She wasn't wrong. The first text came 2 nights later. Liana, I miss you. I know I messed up. I can't sleep. Please talk to me. I didn't reply. Then came the guilt. Liana, my sister won't even look at me. Dad won't return my calls. Everyone hates me. You're the only person I have left. Then the bargaining. Liana, let me make it right. I'll go to therapy. I'll pay you back. I'll do anything. Then, the real kicker. Liana, can you loan me just $200 to cover a bill this week? Just until I get paid. That's when I blocked her. Phone, email, social media. I even called my cell provider and had them disable any new numbers trying to reach me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad. I was numb. Camille filed the paperwork the following Thursday. It was fast, clean, uncontested. I submitted documentation, bank transfers to Liana's personal account, text messages asking me not to tell her sister, pharmacy receipts showing I'd skipped medication. She read it all, stamped it, and said I'd likely get a small financial settlement for misconduct. Maybe even enough to cover the rent I was now paying on my own. But the money didn't matter. The silence did. When it was done, I walked out of that courthouse feeling like my lungs worked again. Like I didn't have to hold my breath every time I checked the bank account. Like I could finally stop being the guy who said, it's okay, when it never was. The texts didn't stop right away. New numbers popped up every couple of days. Liana begging. Liana blaming. Liana pretending it hadn't happened. I deleted them all without reading past the first line. She had made her choice. Now I was making mine. About 2 weeks after the papers were finalized, I got a text from Tessa. Tessa, lunch this week? Me and Dad want to check in. I hesitated before replying. Part of me just wanted to disappear into routine, go to work, pay my bills, come home, sleep. But another part, when I hadn't heard from in a long time, wanted to be seen again. Not used, not manipulated. Just seen. Me. Sure. Wednesday. We met at a little diner near the marina. Nothing fancy, just good sandwiches and no judgment. Frank stood up as soon as I walked in and clapped me on the back like we were long-lost buddies. Tessa waved me over and slid me a menu like it was a peace offering. Good to see you, Frank said, looking me square in the eye. We've been thinking about you. I sat down, unsure what to say. But Frank didn't make it awkward. He just ordered a club sandwich, then asked if I still did my own oil changes. We talked about nothing for a while, sports, the weather, some weird neighbor who kept feeding raccoons on Frank Street. And it was nice, quiet, real. Eventually, Tessa leaned forward. Can I just say something? She asked. I serious. I nodded. I'm sorry. I should have seen it sooner. I never thought Liana was. She stopped herself. Well, I never thought she'd go that far. You're not the only one, I said. Frank sighed. She always had a way of convincing people. She could smile and make you feel like you were overreacting, even when you weren't. He looked at me and paused. But I want you to know something. I set down my fork. You did right by all of us, he said. You tried. More than anyone had a right to expect. And what she did, what she took, it doesn't erase the kind of man you are. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I just nodded and blinked a few times too fast. Tessa smiled. We think of you as family, not her husband. You. That landed hard. It felt good. Strange, but good. After that, we started meeting for lunch every couple of weeks. Sometimes just me and Tessa. Sometimes Frank joined. We never talked about Liana unless it slipped out in a joke or a sigh. Mostly we just talked like people who understood each other. Once, after a bad day at work, I found a voicemail from Frank. Hey, just checking in. You're not alone, all right? You ever need help with anything, moving, fixing something, just company, you call me. I mean that. That night, I sat on my couch and actually smiled. Not because things were perfect, not even close, but because for the first time in a long time, I had people in my corner who didn't want anything from me, except for me to be okay. I moved into a modest apartment across town, nothing fancy, just a clean two-bedroom with good light and a quiet neighbor who keeps to himself. The walls were still mostly bare, the furniture half second-hand, half Craigslist finds, but for the first time in months, the space felt like mine. No secrets in the corners. No tension hiding in the couch cushions. Just peace. The first weekend after I settled in, I did something I hadn't done in years. I cooked a real breakfast. Eggs, toast, bacon, the works. I even sat down to eat, instead of grabbing a protein bar and heading to work. That's when it hit me. This was what freedom felt like. Not a big, dramatic gesture. Just a slow morning with my phone face down and my coffee still hot. I started taking care of myself again. Went to the doctor. Refilled all my prescriptions. Even scheduled a dental cleaning I'd been putting off for way too long. I began eating better, less fast food, more real meals. Not because anyone was watching, not to prove anything. Just because I wanted to feel human again. At night, I read. Watched movies I'd missed. Rewatched the ones I liked. No one to say the plot was boring or the acting was wooden. Just me, a blanket, and the remote. I set up a savings account too. The kind where money went in and stayed there. It was small at first, just a few $100s. But it grew. And with it, a new idea formed. A vacation. A real one. Not a guilt trip disguised as generosity. Not a getaway I couldn't afford. Just something for me. I started researching places I'd never been. Colorado in the fall. Oregon's coast. Maybe even Ireland if I got brave enough. Every time I added a new destination to the list, I felt something lift. I wasn't just recovering anymore. I was planning. One night, I pulled out an old photo of me and Liana from back when things were good, or at least when I thought they were. I stared at it for a long time, trying to feel something. Regret. Nostalgia. Anger. But I didn't feel any of that. I just felt distance. Like I was looking at someone else's life. And maybe I was. That version of me, the one who bent and broke and bled to keep someone else comfortable, is gone. I mourned him for a while. But now? Now I'm building something better. Not bigger. Not louder. Just honest. That's what I want going forward. Peace. Honesty. Self-respect. And for the first time in a long time, I have all three.